So here we go. This is called the miracle that changed everything. But I got to tell you what was happening in the story so you can pick up on what's going on with them. So here we go. In a small village of Bethany, two sisters, Martha and Mary, anxiously watched over their sick brother Lazarus. Bethany was 2 miles from them. I don't know how far is 2 miles. Is that Spinks from here? It's 2 miles. Let's say that. His condition worsened, and they only knew one person that could save him, and that was Jesus. In desperation, they sent a message to Jesus. He said, Lord, the one you love is sick. He did love this family. He really loved this family. So the message got to Jesus. Now, if you had gotten a message that said one of your loved ones is about to die and you were 2 miles away, you would get there. Hold on a minute. Remember this delay we talked about? There's a reason why things are happening. When Jesus received the message, he surprised the disciples by not rushing to Lazarus' side. Instead, this is so cool. He said, this sickness will not end in death. It is for God's glory. Watch this. Here's what you have to know. So Jesus meets with his Father every day. Did y'all know this? That he went and met with his Father? So they arranged things to happen. Nothing that Jesus did. Now, your day may be like, well, whatever will be, will be. That's not the way he worked. Him and his Father always set up stuff. They knew what was happening. The reason being is because they needed to see who this was. He said, me and the Father, we're the same. And what I do, he does. We say the same things. We do the same things. You need to see how we really are and how we love. So they would set up stuff. So now we have a setup. He set up. He said, this is going to end in God's glory. Yet he stayed where he was for 2 more days before telling the disciples, let's go back to Judea. Why is 4 days so important? Here's why it's important. See, the Jews believed, and wherever it may come from, that the Spirit hung around the tomb for 3 days. So Jesus waited 4 days because he didn't want any doubt. I didn't want you to think somebody just sitting on a stone somewhere waiting on me. I didn't want any doubt. So he delayed for 4 days. He said, let's go back to Judea. And then Thomas jumps in. This is the doubting Thomas. The disciples hesitated. He said, Rabbi, they tried to stone us there, you know. They tried to kill us. But Jesus reassured them, speaking in different ways to them. He said, there are 12 hours of daylight. Listen to this. If you walk in the light, you won't stumble. Then he added, Lazarus has fallen asleep, and I'm going to wake him. You heard it like they heard it. You just heard it like they heard it. He's asleep. We're going to get him up. Confused, the disciples said, Lord, if he's asleep, he will get better. And then he had to clarify, no. Lazarus is dead. For your sake, I'm glad I was not there so that you may believe. Remember the setup? I'm going to show you who I am right now. I don't know if all the dead people he raised were 3 days or 4 days. I don't think that was the case. I think it was early on. So they could dismiss this. You understand? You can dismiss this raising from the dead. Well, they really wasn't that dead. They were only dead 2 days. They were only dead 3 days. No, this one's 4. And I'm glad I wasn't there. He said, I'm glad I'm not there so that you will know and you will believe who I am. Thomas, doubting Thomas, turned to the others. Can you hear this? He said, well, let's just go with him and die. That's what he said. He didn't even care about Lazarus. He said, they already tried to kill us over there. He said, well, let's just go die. There's that doubting Thomas. By the time Jesus arrived, Lazarus had been dead for how many days? And why is he doing it? Because he needs to let you know who he is, the resurrection and the life. And no one comes to the Father but through him. He is life, and he gave it to you, and he gave it to me, and he's about to give it to Lazarus. He's about to do it. So when he got there, he'd been dead 4 days. People were mourning. Martha heard that Jesus was near and rushed to meet him. Mary stayed back. Okay? Lord, she said, her voice filled with sorrow, if you'd only been here, my brother would have not died. But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask. You better believe it, because I'm God. You're talking to him. You're talking to the resurrection. Do you know why Mary wasn't there? What's the point? He's dead. She's already mad. What's the point? Jesus looked at her with kindness and said, your brother will rise again. And you would have said, well, we know he'll rise again in the last day. That's not what he was talking about. And here's the verse that you heard. This is where it is. He said, no. No. I am the resurrection and the life. And whoever believes in me will live, even though they die. Do you believe this? Most powerful words ever spoken. Martha responded, I believe. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God. She went home to get Mary. The teacher is asking about you. Mary got up immediately and ran to meet Jesus. Overwhelmed with emotion, she fell at his feet. She should have fell there. Acting like, you should have been here. You ever had one of them in your family? Tears streaming down her face. Lord, if you'd only been here, my brother would have lived. He would have lived. Seeing her weeping in sorrow, here's just a couple of things you need to know. The Bible says that Jesus was deeply moved. He was moved in 3 different ways, but we can't get into that tonight. This is an amazing story. His heart ached at the pain of death. And Jesus, the famous verse, you know, what's the shortest verse in the Bible? Jesus wept. Some onlookers whispered. He said, see how much you loved him? Others doubted. You see how this works? You could have seen every resurrection and you could have seen every healing and you were still like, what? And others doubted, saying, couldn't he heal the blind? Couldn't he just kept Lazarus from dying? Couldn't he? Jesus was still deeply moved. Walked toward the tomb. A cave sealed with a large stone. Please get the picture. Get the picture. The same thing that's happening in front of him is going to happen to him in a week. So he's got to make the point now. He's got to let everybody know. Because I got to have, listen to this, I got to have my followers, I got to have my disciples to believe. Because you got to move it. You got to move it to the people. You're going to have to lose your life for this. Are you willing to lose your life for this? So Peter, you better know who I am. You better know. So he walked toward the cave with a large stone. He said, take it away. Take it away. Martha walked in. Y'all ready? Martha walks in. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. He's been dead for 4 days. And the King James says he stinketh. I don't know what word you'd use. He smells bad. You know, they wrapped him in grave clothes, they called it, and they put spices on them and everything to keep the smell down. And they came to the tomb. Remember this? They came to the tomb with Jesus and they were going to anoint the body and put spices on it. There was just one problem. He wasn't there. It kind of messed everything up, what they had in mind. But Lazarus was there. He was in there. He'd been there for 4 days. So they rolled the stone away. And here we go again. Watch this. So he looked up at his father. I'll give you a paraphrase. We've already worked this out. It's time that they know who I am. And I thank you for hearing me. I thank you for answering my prayer that they're going to know right now who I am. Then in a loud voice, he called out. He said, Lazarus. I don't know how loud it was, and nobody knows why he yelled. Maybe he wanted everybody to hear, because there were a lot of people. There were a lot of people. Remember, they already tried to kill him in this place one time. Now everybody's there. In a loud voice said, come out. The crowd gasped. Can you only imagine? Now watch this. Everything's silent. And they hear footsteps coming from the cave. What would you do? They got really quiet. And from the shadows, he just came right out. He walked right out. Standing there all wrapped up. He could barely walk. I don't know how he got out there. All wrapped up. Lazarus appeared in his burial clothes, his hands and feet still bound in the linen. And then Jesus said something spectacular that did it. You might as well be saying it to you. This is what happens when you accept Jesus Christ in your life. This is what happens when the resurrection gets into you and gets a hold of your life. He said, take the grave clothes off. Take them off. He said, and let him go. It's the most wonderful story. The crowd was in awe and in shock. And they began to spread the news that Lazarus was alive. Two things you need to know about that. First thing is they try to kill Lazarus again. The religious people got a hold of this, and this is what was supposed to happen. Two things are going to happen here. I need you to know who I am. Now you know. Now you know. Nobody can do this but God. Now you know who I am. Second thing had to happen, everything had to get into motion. So I need the religious people mad. I need you to go to the Romans. I need you to tell them. I need you to go to the religious crowd. I need you to go to the Sadducees and the Pharisees and get the leaders together and get with these Romans so that you can crucify me so that you will have life and your sins will be forgiven. And I can call you children of God. And that's what happened in that story.